Good evening and welcome viewers to the highlights package from round 9 of the Formula Sim Racing AMA series, brought to you from the mighty Spa Francorchamps circuit nestled in the Ardennes forest region of Belgium. Now, a 2D map just simply doesn't do it justice and doesn't give you a good orientation of this circuit, so we'll have a bit of a tour to take in the spectacular 103 metre vertical elevation change that creates part of its alluring character, and try to give you just a bit better feel for this circuit nestled in the Ardennes forest of Belgium. From this perspective, you can see how you're really gaining a lot of altitude all the way up Rivage and up the Kemmel Straight to the beginning of Sector 2, and then from Sector 2 you're dropping all that altitude back down to the beginning of Sector 3. Now, the circuit, of course, is only slightly less than half its original length. It started out in 1922, and you can see the picture there of the old and the new overlaid, and it was a public road linking the towns of Francorchamps, Malmedy and Stavelot. And you can see there the scale, and that original track was a bit of a speed track. Safety concerns resulted in the old track being mothballed in 1978 and the new one unveiled for the first time in 1981. Now, this map is helpful because it overlays all the corner names, and of course you can see that Stavelot and Malmedy corners are actually in the modern circuit nowhere near where they were originally. And for those World War II buffs and trivia buffs, this is the same Ardennes that featured in the Battle of the Bulge, and the Malmedy section of the old circuit is the same Malmedy that featured in an epic tank battle where the American troops had to burn all of their fuel to fight off the attacking German troops. Now, a bit of information about elevation change. Spa is by head and shoulders the greatest elevation change of any of the modern Formula One circuits at about 103 metres. And you can see there some of the bigger ones, Spielberg, Brazil, etc. And then we jump down to the smaller ones, Albert Park and Sochi, with a lung-busting 1.6 altitude variation. And of course, being an Aussie, I couldn't resist the temptation to whack Mount Panorama Bathurst in there as well, just for scale. Now we'll quickly cruise over the circuit for you using good old Google Earth. The graphics aren't really high res here, but it's still a nice exercise. Start finish straight and into La Source, very tight and tricky on turn 1, lap 1. It is a greater than a 90-degree sharpness, and it's also the highest brake temps you get the whole lap, because you've had the big stop into the bus stop and a second big stop into La Source. So it is never straightforward no matter what lap you're on. The run down the hill is absolutely pinned, flat out, accelerating as hard and as fast as you possibly can. And Eau Rouge and Raidillon are flat, regardless of fuel load, in a modern Formula car. However, side by side usually won't work, especially on cold tyres. Now, for a bit of fun, that's the old circuit. In 1922, it went left. It went around what was called the old customs house, or the Ancienne Douane, and that was a German Empire customs collection house. But that loop was cancelled in 1939, because in 1939 it was all about the quest for speed, and that led to the installation of the Raidillon corner. And just for the record, Eau Rouge is the left, Raidillon is the right. Kemmel Straight is significantly uphill. If you stop a car here and take your foot off the brake, you will start rolling backwards down the Kemmel Straight. Speeds are very high in these cars, up to about 325 in clear air. Le Combe, big braking zone, into a medium speed corner, but you're coming down from such high speed it feels slower than that. It's the third gear corner. This will be a scene of many battles under brakes from drivers who've taken advantage of slipstream. Above and middle there you can see the old circuit winding off to the left, heading off to the towns of Malmedy and eventually to Stavelot. The run down to Rivage or Brussels is pretty straightforward, just a case of maximising your acceleration, getting your line right and carefully spotting your brake marker. It's the third gear right-hander that really takes its toll on the front tyres. No name corner there, the left-hander on the right, which is also known as Jackie Ick's corner or Speaker's corner. So quite a few names really for a corner with no names. Lacombe, by the way, was the highest point of the circuit, where you had 104 metres of elevation in hand. Pouhon here, incredibly fast and legendary corner. It's a touch of the brakes just to get the nose in and then pin it in sixth, exiting at something like 285 kilometres an hour on race pace. And then into the Campus and Malmedy sections, a right-left where line is critical, but you don't want to get too greedy and overheat your tyres. If your line is good and you haven't overheated them, then if you take all the road you can and be brave out of Stavelot, you can carry extra speed through Paul Frere. Paul Frere was a Belgian racing driver and journalist who has a Le Mans win to his credit and wrote the definitive reference work on the Porsche 911. You can also just see there the local go-kart circuit. So it's absolutely flat through Blanchimont, and then as we approach the bus stop, appropriately named because it is the biggest stopping zone in the whole lap. Now the lap that matters, however, is the qualifying lap, and you've got the qualifying results there up on the screen, and Mirko Mancini has once again delivered his qualifying magic with a sensational lap time of 1 minute 42.549. He is very closely followed by Liam Howard, the Netrex Grand Prix driver, and there's an interesting story here because Liam Howard, prior to the previous round in Le Mans, had a best finish here of 7th place, but he's podiumed at Le Mans and seemingly has found a rich vein of form late here in the season. Casper Nizio, consistent front runner, 3 times podium winner so far, with a great result in 4th place. And Nizio is followed by a bit of a TR Bluvos Motorsport train. We have Dylan Hember, their brand new recruit, Giannis Lianos, who we'll talk about a bit more later, and Thomas Smith, and those guys are all within 35 thousandths of a second of each other. Now, sharing the 4th row with Perseus Miriam is a totally new driver to the league. Isaac Clark, this is his debut in Formula Sim Racing, driving for Ground Effect Sim Racing team, and he's absolutely made a fantastic first qualifying session here. 5th row shared by O'Reilly and Jones. Jones managed to podium for the first time in Monaco, and O'Reilly has a previous best result of 6th place in Indianapolis. The rest of the names I'll let you read off the list there, but the top 16 covered by 2 seconds on a pretty long lap here at Spa, so well done to the AMA grid. And back by popular demand, what we've done here is we've merged the qualifying lap times from Division 3 and Division 4 to show where the various drivers would have ended up. Was it a merged grid? Or were it a merged grid? The ones in green are Division 4 and the ones in blue are Division 3, and I think you'll agree that the Division 4 boys did very, very well. So as the Italian driver and championship leader Mirko Mancini leads the cars off the grid, we'll firstly say to Mirko Mancini, congratulations on Italy's fabulous win in the European Football Championships. And Mirko Mancini has been on an incredible run. He was 3rd in the Netherlands, 1st in Britain, 1st in USA, 1st in Monaco, and 1st in Le Mans. So he is leading the championship by a significant margin. His qualifying pace has been sensational, and he has really, really set the pace out the front during the race. Liam Howard, Netrex driver, he was thrilled to bits with his first ever podium back in Le Mans and is now climbing up the standings due to the strength of his recent results. Casper Nizio, Ground Effect team. Casper is heading straight after this race to go and do the Division 3 race as well. So we'll talk about that a bit later on. We flash back to Dylan Hember, who was 4th on the grid, but Dylan didn't start his car. He hit the wrong button, and so he's got to make his way through the grid. Now this is the Greek driver, Giannis Lianos, 2nd in the championship, and he has been signed and has moved in and formed part of the TR Bluvos team. So we're looking forward to and expecting great things from Giannis today. Thomas Smit is the next one here, young Dutch driver, multiple podium winner, and certainly on a burst of form at the moment. There in the red and white and black car is Isaac Clark making his debut for Ground Effect Sim Racing Team. He is so new that they haven't had time to paint a car for him. Perseus Miriam is in the blue car there for Royal Blue Racing. Then we have David O'Reilly in the TR Blue Boss car. Sean Jones in the yellow Val Esports car. Michael Teekman, team boss at TR Blue Boss, coming around the corner then followed by Mihajlo Vincenzovic, Alex Hallows, Fabrice Morelato, Leone Gennari, Camille Jablonski, Jean-Michel Garnier, Gerardo Prieto and Lewis Smith, an independent driver, bringing up the rear. Now, Dylan Hember here is stuck behind everybody, and he's had a bit of an issue here because he badly wanted to warm up. He's starting on hard tyres and really wanted to get some heat into his hard tyres, but he hit the wrong button. He went to hit the launch control button at the start of the formation lap, and he hit the ignition button, and the car would not start until everybody else had gone past. So Dylan's here tentatively trying to get past everybody. Now, quick word about strategy. It's a 22 lap event today. Hard and soft tyres must both be used. The pit window will potentially open as early as lap 9 because you can, at a stretch, manage to do 13 laps on one tank of fuel. So we will see people pitting from as early as lap 9 and from as late as lap 12 as the race evolves. The tyre offset between hard and soft is about 0.6, 0.7, which starts to dissipate after about 6 laps, and by lap 10 they're even Steven. And lights about to go out for lap 1 of 22 laps here at the FSR AMA Belgium Grand Prix, and the blue car at the front, Mirko Mancini, brilliant getaway, superb getaway by Casper Nizio in that red ground effect car. He's jumped in front of Liam Howard, who actually started from the front row. So Howard in third, and it looks like Giannis Lianos from 5th has already climbed to 4th before they've even got to the Kemmel Straight. So fantastic drive for the Greek driver in his first outing with the new TR Blue Boss team. A lot of smoke there from the engines. And Lianos has not finished yet. He has taken Liam Howard. So Lianos has gone from 5th on the grid to 3rd in Sector 1, Lap 1. That was an outstanding opening segment from him. We'll watch the cars go around Rivage here to get a feel for who's where on the grid. We'll jump ahead now to the lead pack. Mirko Mancini, the championship leader and pole sitter, leading the way in the blue car. The blue and red car is Casper Nizio, driving for Ground Effect Sim Racing. He's then followed by Giannis Lianos in his first outing for his new TR Blue Boss team. Liam Howard following in the Netrex Grand Prix car, and behind him we have Isaac Clark making a fabulous debut also for Ground Effect Sim Racing, but as yet in an unpainted car. Now then we appear to have Dylan Hember, who's dropped a couple of spots. We'll have a closer look at that opening lap in a minute. He's dropped a couple of spots. Smith has dropped more than a couple of spots, and O'Reilly has gained a couple. So we then have Hember on the hards, O'Reilly on the softs, and Smith on the softs following those guys. So we'll watch the lead pack complete their first lap and start lap 2 as they head up towards La Source corner, and indeed Mirko Mancini followed by Nizio, followed by Lianos, then Howard, then Clark, Hember, O'Reilly, Smith, and that looks like Sean Jones has had a pretty good start from P10 on the grid. So we're going to go back to the start now. We've jumped on board with Lianos to see how he managed to go from 5th place to 3rd place in one sector. He's had a nice dive up the inside and cleared Hember, who of course was on the hard tyres, which is makes the getaway a bit trickier, and so that's one spot. Now he's right on the gearbox of Liam Howard in the Netrex car, and he's getting a big tow here. I can hear a crash in the background. We'll go back and look at that, but massive tow and massive overspeed allows Lianos to close that out into Lacombe. Howard cooperates and doesn't take any risks, and that allows him to get through. We'll jump on board now with Thomas Smit, the Dutch TR Bluvos driver. You can see Lianos on the right there, Smit on the left. He's hemmed in a bit by Dylan Hember on the hard tyre. Smit goes a little wide, gets a bit beached on that massive sausage curb, and he has indeed lost a few places, and he is now down from 5th in qualifying to 8th. Now we're just taking a broader overview now of the start, because it appears that both Tieckmann and Vincenzovic are out. They're the two cars in centre of screen, Tieckmann left, Vincenzovic right, and they have endeavoured to go side by side up through Radion, and unfortunately once contact was made with Tieckmann's rear wheel, his car was being steered by forces outside his control, so that is game over. So we're riding on board, this is lap 1 again, this is the start of the race, and we're on board with Nizio in P2, who should get a massive overspeed. And have a look at those numbers on his speedo, and want to see how Mancini avoids being overtaken, and he's managed to occupy a fair bit of real estate there, and quite skillfully make it difficult to get by, and that's what held position 1 for Mancini in sector 1, despite the overspeed. Now we've got a bit of a team situation here, because we have 3 cars line astern from the TR Bluvos team. Dylan Hember was the quickest qualifier, but he's on hards. Then we've got O'Reilly, who qualified 9th, he's on softs. Smit, who qualified 5th, and he is on softs. Smit is saying to O'Reilly, look, can I get through please? And O'Reilly is saying to Hember, look, can I get through please? You're slowing me up on the hard tyre. Hember suggesting we'd do it a bit later in the lap. O'Reilly saying to Smit, look, I'm racing as well, I'm on softs and I want to clear Hember, so there won't be any team orders this lap. So Smit says, okay, that's fine, we'll just race. So diving down into the bus stop chicane, Smit, who has got fantastic pace at this early stage of the race, just dives down the inside, makes a beautiful clean overtake on O'Reilly, and starts trying to move forward and catch up and pass Dylan Hember. So you want to keep an eye on this guy's progress, because Thomas Smit was 8th into sector 2 lap 1. He is now up into 7th by virtue of passing O'Reilly, and now Jones has decided he'll have a bit of the action as well, and using the slipstream and overspeed he clears O'Reilly, and so we now have Smit, Hember, Jones, O'Reilly in the train from position 7 back. That's Hember moving aside to let Smit through now. So that's Smit now up into 6th place at the end of lap 3, but it's not over yet. Jones is just behind Hember here, so you've got Smit, Hember, Jones, O'Reilly, remembering Jones passed O'Reilly on the previous lap, and Jones has got good pace. He's certainly feeling out of position with the qualifying result of 10th place, and Jones will now attack Hember to hopefully move up into 7th place. So big run of speed. You can look at the numbers there on the speedo. He's doing just about 340 kilometres an hour down the inside, but Hember on the hards just cannot compete into Le Com, and Jones is through. This is also lap 4. This is Alex Hallows, teammate of Sean Jones in the Val Esports team, and just gets a horrible moment of throttle oversteer in the Fagnes Malmedy section, and that is game over. As the leaders round La Source to commence lap 5, we have Mancini, Nizio, but Lianos is all over Nizio, gets a tremendous run down through the descent into Eau Rouge and Radion, and incredibly Lianos gets the move done before they've even hit Kemmel Straight, and you can see there Nizio suffered a lot from the aero wash from Lianos' car. That high speed section there, very tricky if you're following closely. A couple of laps ago, Sean Jones managed to pass Dylan Hember into Le Com, but Jones has had a bit of a scrappy exit from the source, and Hember's thinking, I'll have a piece of this. And of course, here at lap 5, the performance gap between the soft and the hard is sort of going away a bit, and Hember gets a fabulous run. If anything, he's a little bit early with his run, because he's now pulled out into a wall of air again and lost his overspeed, and Jones on the softer tyre is just able to prevent Hember from closing out that attack. So with his teammate O'Reilly behind him on the softs and Hember on the hards, Dylan Hember does the generous thing and moves wide in Rivage to let his teammate through to try to attack Jones. So we're now lap 6. This is the lead group coming through. Mancini followed by Lianos, Nizio, Isaac Clark and Liam Howard, and that there in 4th is Thomas Smith. Now here at lap 6, Thomas Smith is now the fastest car on the track. The TR Blue Boss team have been practicing hard in the build-up to this event, sharing setups, refining setups, and Thomas has got one that he's very, very happy with. There's actually one tweaked by Dylan Hember that Dylan's also using, and he knows he can push and he knows he's got really good long stint performance in these tyres. So he's pushing hard and going long, and he's up in 4th, having been 8th on the exit of the source on lap 1. So pretty impressive drive to this point. So we're jumping ahead 3 laps now. It is now lap 9, and you can see Mancini leading Lianos, leading Nizio, but look what's happened here. Thomas Smith has hunted down Liam Howard and is almost within striking distance as they make the charge up Radion and onto the uphill Kemmel Straight. Smith is just getting close enough to get an aerodynamic tow from Liam Howard and dives to the inside, and it is a very precise move and great driving from Liam Howard as well. The two of them give each other racing room and respect, and he manages a clean pass there into what I think is 5th position outright. And the race is now, from a commentating perspective and from a sporting perspective, is really starting to come alive. We're late into the first stint. We're on lap 9, and you'll recall that Hember waved O'Reilly through to let him have a crack at Sean Jones. Sean Jones's pace is going off a little bit. He seems to be struggling a little bit on wear balance, and O'Reilly is actually gaining at about 0.4 to 0.5 of a second per lap. Now, bearing in mind that the pit window opens at the end of this lap, O'Reilly's engineer is wondering if perhaps there's going to be an overcut opportunity, whether or not Sean Jones will pit for hard tyres. It's becoming quite a little derby between these three, Jones, O'Reilly and Hember, who are duking it out for P7, but in fact it ends up being Hember is the first one to pit. So Hember goes for a mighty undercut onto softs at the first opportunity, end of lap 9. So he's lining up for a 12-lap stint on the soft tyre. He knows he's got the long stint performance to make it work. Okay, next time around, end of lap 10, and O'Reilly's engineer has said to him, just do whatever Sean Jones doesn't do. We're thinking he'll pit, but no, Jones goes around again, and O'Reilly enters the pit lane at the end of lap 10 for a set of hard tyres. Now this is now same lap, lap 10, a few seconds earlier. Thomas Smith is now all over the gearbox of Isaac Clark for 4th place. Clark pits, Smith goes long. Smith is going to drive a 13-lap opening stint on the soft tyre, so it is the business end now of Smith's opening stint. It's 1 lap later, this is lap 11, and we are with the leaders. We're on board with Janis Lianos, who is chasing down Mirko Mancini and all over him like the proverbial cheap suit. Mancini is not getting things his own way today here in Spa. And look at those numbers on the speedometer there. Lianos will touch 340 kph, but no hasty moves. He's just happy to get really, really close at this stage of the game and show Mancini the pace that he's got and hopefully force an error. So Mancini's car may be suffering from just a little bit of understeer, but we'll ride with these guys as these two great drivers duke it out for first place through Sector 2 at Spa. Now, if we are correct in our assumption, and indeed Mancini is suffering now a little bit from a wear balance issue, a little bit of understeer from slightly heavily worn front tyres, it is very likely that Mancini will pit at the end of this lap. They've got to stop now at the end of lap 11 or the end of lap 12. That's it, that's all they can do. Yes, indeed, Mancini pits. Right, now we're going to jump back to the earlier story of Jones, Hember and O'Reilly. Hember pitted lap 9, so that's 2 laps to go, and this is Hember coming around now, and that is Jones exiting the pits, and Hember has significantly undercut Jones there with a beautiful move. Unfortunately, O'Reilly, with 1 lap later pit stop, still a lap earlier than Jones, totally messes up La Source and takes all the pressure off Jones. That might have been a fight we could have watched. So what we're on board with now is Lianos' in lap. This is lap 12. So he is on track in the lead. Whether that converts itself into the lead after the stop remains to be seen. But we'll just get a bit of perspective now by seeing who is on the straight with Lianos. You've got Lianos in first place, Nizio in second place. And who's that behind Nizio? That is Thomas Smith. Thomas is now third on track, remembering, of course, Mancini's got a slot back in, and that's Liam Howard in fourth. So Mancini will slot back in there amongst these guys somehow, but remembering that all these guys have got a pit this end of this lap. So that will be a story in itself. So Lianos, race leader, pits after a storming in-lap and takes no prisoners as he approaches the pit stop line. Let's see how this pans out. Now Mancini, who stopped 1 lap earlier, of course, has had to do an outlap on the prime tyre, which is never great fun. And he also has reported a slight delay with the pit stop, perhaps due to a slight bit of damage in the first stint. But this is Mancini rounding La Source to see where he sits with regards to Lianos, and Lianos has pulled off the overcut with a stunning in-lap and now has the net lead after all the pit stops ahead of Mirko Mancini on track. Both of them on equal tyres, and now these two titans have got to fight it out for another 10 laps to see who reigns supreme here at Spa-Francorchamps. Now the first thing that will cross Mancini's mind is that this is Lianos' outlap on cold hard tyres, and Mancini has had a whole lap bring his hard tyres in slightly, so he may have a small chance here to strike, and we'll be probing and looking for any weakness, any lack of stability in Lianos' car. But it looks like Lianos is just treading that fine line of pushing it to the limit but not overstepping the limit on the hard tyre, and by the end of sector 2, any advantage that Mancini might have had tyre-wise is going to start to dissipate. So you might say that the Lianos overcut has been successful to this point. Now back to probably one of the biggest stories of the day and of the race. This is Casper Nizio, who is in third place net, and right on his tail is Thomas Smith. He was off camera as he entered La Source. He's certainly on camera now. And how did Thomas Smith do that? By the way, was Lianos we just watched there drive out of pit lane. Thomas Smith is hunting down Casper Nizio and did an incredible in-lap and an incredibly bold entry into what is a fairly tricky pit lane. And we now have Thomas Smith attacking Casper Nizio for net third in the race, depending, of course, where they are with regard to Liam Howard. But I think Smith has happily and successfully overcut Liam Howard. So, and that is Nizio. Nizio has had a spin at No Name, and Thomas Smith from 8th on the grid is now in third place in this race. And so yes, with all pit stops done, that is our lead group: Lianos, Mancini, Thomas Smith, Casper Nizio, and in a moment we should see Liam Howard from Netrex rounding La Source. That is our top 5. 1 lap later, lap 14, how hard are these top 2 guys pushing? That's Mancini looking for everything on the exit of La Source and getting a big burst of throttle oversteer. Lap 16, and Thomas Smith is not the only TR Blue Voss driver with ambitions of moving forward in this race. Dylan Hember, the man who did the 2-car undercut around the pit cycles, is now on his option stint and ready to rumble, and he is challenging now. This is Isaac Clark, the debutant driver for Ground Effect Sim Racing, and Hember has the pace. He's just got to get the move done. Dives down the inside, that doesn't quite manage to avoid contact. We'll have a little bit of a look at that. Hember's on the right hand side, unrubbered line. Clark on the left hand side, both braking. Hember drifts to the middle, Clark comes to the middle, and Hember no longer has to think about grabbing 6th. He's got to think about losing 7th, because that was Sean Jones. Sean Jones, you saw in the background there, it just cruises by, was driving in 8th place and now 7th. He's pulled a little gap on O'Reilly, and now he has Hember between himself and O'Reilly, and Sean Jones now holding 7th place, just needs to bring it home. But sometimes that's easier said than done, and we will just stick with Jones, because you can see in the background there you've got the 2 TR Blue-Voss teammates of Hember and O'Reilly just in camera shot now as they exit Puhon. Jones through the Fagnes-Malmedy sector, hopefully looking after his tyres and not being too greedy there, but just overcooks it on the exit of Stavelot, and you can see there that's Hember through, and Jones shows a lot of restraint to allow both cars to pass safely. This is lap 16, and this is the fight that just keeps on giving. This is Nizio on Smith. Remember, Smith got him on the pit exit. That's 3 laps ago when Nizio had his little half spin at No Name. So Nizio has boldly attacked into bus stop and pulled it off beautifully. But Smith is not going to lie down, and he's going to come right back at him. He's got a fast car and a good setup, and he's got good long stint tyre performance. And Smith will now immediately re-attack up Kemmel Straight and pulls off a pretty straightforward pass using a lot of aero wash assistance there. And Smith is back through and in front of Nizio again, and back into net 3rd in this event. Now our cameraman at Rivage is going to show you just how close the top 5 are. There's Lianos, Mancini, now coming over the rise. You've got Smith, and you've got Nizio, and that there is Liam Howland. Meanwhile, Mancini is absolutely keen to attack Lianos and try to recover first place. Second place is not a spot that Mancini's used to, and he is going to do everything he can. He's getting close enough to get some big aero help here. Slight little bit of oversteer moment from Lianos as he exits La Source. This is the start of lap 18, and Mancini is close enough to get a massive tow, a little bit wide there. A massive tow, if you look at the numbers on his speedo here, touching 340. Lianos very disciplined and polite there by just sticking to the left-hand side, and Mancini is through with a clean pass into the pom. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is not over yet. Lianos is still quick, and there are 4 laps left, including this one, for him to compete for the win, and that's exactly what we would expect him to do. Lap 19, Kemmel Straight, and we can see clearly here that Mirko Mancini is not able to drop Giannos Lianos, and if anything, Lianos is narrowing the gap. This race is far from over. Lianos continues to close the gap, and this is lap 22. This is the final lap of the race. Lianos gets a fantastic run down towards Eau Rouge and Radillon, and is definitely going to be close enough for an aero-assisted attack in the dirty air of Mancini. Mancini using quite a bit of real estate here, and Lianos finally forced to go left. Appears to have cleared him from the cockpit view, but there is contact. So this is going to be a controversial one. It will go before the stewards, I'm sure, but it is just a great shame that an incredible race between these guys ended up in such a way. But nonetheless, we pointed out how close Smith and Nizio were to the leaders, and in fact Liam Howard as well. And look what happens next. That is Thomas Smith clearing not just Lianos but also Mancini, and now just has to drive 2 sectors to potentially claim his first ever Formula Sim racing victory. And this was from 8th place at the exit of La Source on lap 1. So just as a reminder, Smith qualified I think in 5th or 6th place, 6th place it was, in a very tight group with 2 of his teammates. and from 8th place has just moved forward beautifully through this event, showing pace and judgment and strategy. And with now just one sector left, he is going to claim his first ever career victory in Formula Sim racing, and in fact the first ever team victory for TR Bluvos. So a fantastic achievement by Thomas Smith. He will say after the race that he was absolutely thrilled to get the win, but not that pleased, that he never wanted to win under those circumstances. But you've got to just take your hat off to him and say well driven. So in the end it was Mancini still recovered to second, then Nizio, then Liam Howard, and then Giannos Lianos. What a race. Next couple of finishes, Isaac Clark, 6th place on debut. Dylan Hember, TR Bluvos, 7th place. David O'Reilly, TR Bluvos, 8th place. And 9th place was Sean Jones, who recovered from that half spin at the exit of Stavelot. 10th place, Kamil Jablonski. 11th place, Perseus Miram. 12th, Fabrice Morilato. 13th, Leone Gennari. 14th, Jean-Michel Garnier, and unfortunately a no finish for Lewis Smith, who had a bad incident entering the pit lane. And there are the results to a fantastic race. Top 3, Thomas Smith, Mirko Mancini, Casper Nizio. The rest of the finishes there I'll let you look at your own leisure. You can pause the video and take your time. Awesome race. A shame it ended with the contact it did at the on lap 22, but that aside, it was an absolute titanic struggle for the win, and in fact all the way through down through the top 10 we had some fantastic fights to enjoy, particularly around the pit stops. And I did allude earlier to the fact that Casper Nizio was reserving in Division 3 straight after that race, and lo and behold, here is the result sheet for Division 3. Nizio finished 3rd in Division 4, and he's then gone on to finish 4th in Division 3, which just shows the strength of the top 10 in the Division 4 series. So congratulations to Casper, well done, awesome result in Division 3 on a reserve drive. And there are the standings after 9 rounds. Mancini still pretty clear up ahead with 157. Lianos on 114, but the fight really tightening up for second place, and between two teammates as well, Lianos and Smith. Casper Nizio, on his current run of form, could not be discounted for getting in amongst those guys as well. So the championship is hotting up and getting more and more interesting. Next race is in a couple of weeks in Japan. Amazing track to race on. I hope you do manage to join us again for the highlights of that event. So it just remains for me to thank you for joining me here for a 39-minute extended highlights package of a 39-minute race. I'm David O'Brundle, and signing out, I would just like to thank our sponsor, the Sim Racers Performance Guide. Grab yourself a copy and learn to set the car up like the pros. Thank you.